They say the most terrifying death is the one that is real. But for me, the fake one was hell. 3 months ago, my daughter, her fiancé, and his mother agreed to tell the whole world that I was dead. No illness, no accident, just because they thought I wasn't refined enough to appear at the wedding, and they truly believed they could bury a man alive with his own dignity. What they didn't know was that some of the dead do return, not for revenge, but as a reminder that some things can never be buried, like truth and self-respect. If you've ever been erased from your own life because someone was ashamed of you, stay with me, because this story will show you what it means to rise from a fake death. If my story resonates with you, please subscribe to the channel, share this video, and remember this. Sometimes what feels like humiliation becomes the very lesson that saves you. Turn every wound into the reason you become better, because one day you'll prove that truth and dignity can never be buried. They say there are two kinds of silence. One belongs to those who have nothing left to say. The other belongs to those waiting for the final strike. That afternoon, I sat in a cafe called the Pine Roof, the place Madeline chose. Oak walls, amber light filtering through glass windows, the smell of Arabica coffee mixing with Seattle rain. I wore my old gray coat, the one I'd kept since retiring as a chief engineer at the architecture firm. For 3 years, I hadn't needed a suit, only quiet. But today my daughter called, saying she had important news. I glanced at my watch. 2:15. Madeline was always punctual, which made her 20-minute delay unusual. I stirred my cold coffee, listening to the soft clink of the spoon against the cup. Such a small sound, yet it made me feel out of place among the young crowd. Startup kids with AirPods, typing fast on glowing keyboards. In the corner, a waitress wiped a table while soft indie music played. I suddenly remembered when Madeline was little, how I used to take her to Gasworks Park, buy vanilla ice cream, and sit by Lake Union. She once said, "Dad, I want a house with glass walls facing the water." I nodded. It felt within reach. Footsteps echoed on the wooden floor. I looked up. Madeline walked in, brown hair, beige dress, face glowing under the light. But what I noticed first wasn't her smile. It was the diamond ring on her left hand. "Dad!" she exclaimed, almost running to me. I stood, my heart pounding, relief mixed with worry. "You're getting married, aren't you?" I smiled, voice rough. "Yes. Chase proposed last night on the rooftop of the Thompson Hotel. There was a small band, white roses and fairy lights. You'd love it." I looked at the ring, shimmering, and felt both pride and emptiness. I'd met Chase once, but through Madeline's eyes I saw complete trust. "What does he do?" I asked. "He runs a medical tech startup. His mother, Mrs. Stone, manages a charity foundation in Queen Anne, quite well known." "You remember last week?" she asked slowly. "The dinner when I brought Chase and his mother to the lakeside restaurant. Mrs. Stone was polite, but I knew what she thought. Chase told me afterward that his mom said, 'He lacks refinement,' and Chase didn't disagree. I laughed it off, but I knew they were judging. I chuckled softly, trying to lighten it. "I'm not used to fancy places like that. Teach me some etiquette next time." Madeline stayed silent, eyes flickering uneasily. She went on about the wedding, how Mrs. Stone had already reserved the Rose Garden Pavilion, a venue for the city's elite. I smiled, listening. Then Madeline's voice lowered, her hands clasped tightly. "Dad, I need a small favor." "You know I'll do anything for you," I said. She took a deep breath. "We're planning for 150 guests. It's expensive. Food, music, flowers, photography. Chase and I can cover most, but the first deposit is urgent. $40,000. I thought, maybe you could help, just this once." I froze. 40,000 wasn't small for a retiree living off savings, but my daughter had never asked for anything before. In my mind flashed the image of her in a white dress, smiling by a window, sunlight filtering in like the day I used to dream for her. If you can't, I understand. It's just... Don't say that, I interrupted softly. I'll take care of it. Her face lit up, eyes bright like spring. Really? Are you sure? Of course, I'll write a check this week. That smile, it erased all my fatigue. You're the best, Dad, she said, squeezing my hand. I couldn't remember the last time she'd touched my hand. Maybe the day of her mother's funeral, when she trembled against my shoulder, 10 years ago. We talked more about flowers, bands, and the Vera Wang dress she'd chosen. I nodded along, pretending to know about wedding planning. When we left, I held the door open. Rain blew against my face. Dad, Madeline turned, I really appreciate this. As long as you're happy, that's all I need. She hugged me, quick, fleeting, and gone. I watched her step into her white BMW, Seattle rain streaking down the windshield. When the car turned the corner, my chest felt hollow. Not because of the money, but because I realized the distance between us was greater than any number. 3 days later, my Fremont house was spotless. I dusted the shelves, wiped Martha's photo frame, and placed a vase of yellow tulips, her favorite. Beside it was a cream envelope with a cashier's check for $40,000. I'd wired the funds early that morning, confirmed, posted at 10:43. Everything was neat, as if preparing for something beautiful. At 10 sharp, a car stopped outside. Madeline came in, beige coat, large purse, a faint scent of Chanel in the air. I'm busy, just came to grab it quickly, she said, sitting on the sofa like a client signing a contract. No problem, it's ready, I smiled, handing her the envelope. Martha would be happy knowing you're getting married. She opened the envelope, glanced at the check, and showed no expression. Thanks, Dad. In that moment, her eyes swept the room, not resting anywhere longer than a second. Her voice was soft but stiff, like someone about to say something painful but inevitable. Dad, I really am grateful, but there are things I need to say so you'll understand why I can't do otherwise. She hesitated, then shook her head. Mrs. Stone told me that weddings from families with tradition shouldn't be tainted by incompatibility. You know who she meant. She looked straight at me. You eat crudely. You chew loudly, drink wine like water, and wipe your mouth with your sleeve. At the restaurant, Chase's mother said, Thank God he won't be at the wedding. I was so embarrassed, Dad. I froze. Every word cut like a blade. I can learn, change. No, you don't understand. I can't let people see you and think I come from that class. I have a future. You should let me live it. She stood, voice calm, as if reading from a contract. Thank you for the money, but don't come. Pretend you're dead, like Mom. I don't remember what I said next. Only the sound of wind through the window, Martha's photo tilting under the faint light. When her car engine faded, the house felt so empty I could hear the clock ticking. I sat still, hands trembling, staring at the empty envelope. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't anyone's father anymore. I stayed there a long time after Madeline left. The house seemed twice as big, hollow, and cold. Her perfume lingered, expensive, clean, distant. The wall clock ticked, each beat cutting into my chest. Then my eyes caught the mirror in the kitchen. A sliver of light reflected my image. A 66-year-old man, shoulders sagging, belly hanging over his belt. Shirt collar open 2 buttons for breath. I stared, but the man looking back wasn't me. It was the stranger who had made his daughter ashamed. I stepped closer, the smell of morning pills still on my breath. I tried to smile. My lips trembled, the smile warped. Light fell on wrinkles, sunken cheeks, and a soft jawline. I remembered every word Madeline said. Chew like an animal. Wipe your mouth with your sleeve. She wasn't wrong. 10 years after Martha died, I had let myself go. Beer for dinner, cold pizza, TV humming till midnight, sleeping on the couch. There was no one left to keep up appearances. But hearing it from my daughter's mouth, that was different. I stared into my own eyes in the mirror. 2 tired lights that still held a spark. A quiet anger spread through me, not the kind that makes you shout, but something slow, cold, and deep. My daughter hadn't just insulted my appearance. She had declared that I no longer deserved a place in her life. I walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Beer cans, sandwiches, leftover food. I dumped everything into the trash. The clang of cans echoed sharply. Then I grabbed my phone. The screen reflected a face blurred with tears. I typed, "Personal Trainer Seattle. Transformation." Dozens of results appeared. I scrolled through several pages before stopping at one name. Leo Carver, Master Trainer, Veteran, Transformation Coach. His photo showed a man in his 40s, lean and strong, with a confident smile. Beneath it, the line read, "I don't just change your body. I teach you how to reclaim your dignity." I pressed call. The phone rang 3 times. Then a firm, deep voice answered, "Carver here. This is Peter Langdon. I need to change. Completely." A few seconds of silence. "How old are you?" 66. "Any heart issues, blood pressure, diabetes?" "Yes. High blood pressure, slightly elevated cholesterol." "Are you ready to hear the truth? I've already been humiliated enough." "Then tomorrow at 8 a.m., Peak District Gym. Don't eat breakfast. Bring a towel and the real reason you want to change. If you don't have one, don't come." I hung up. My hands still shook, but for the first time in months, something that felt like purpose stirred inside me. I went back to my bedroom and opened the closet. Old jeans, faded flannel shirts, wrinkled socks. I set them aside and chose a rarely worn tracksuit. As I folded the shirt, our wedding photo fell to the floor. In it, Martha was radiant, and I, neat, confident, bright-eyed. I picked it up and wiped the dust gently. "I've let you be ashamed of me, Martha," I whispered. That night, I didn't sleep. At 4:30 a.m., I made black coffee and stared at the fog outside the window. Spring rain in Seattle left a film of moisture over the glass like smoke. I sat there until 7:30, then drove my old Ford to the gym. Peak District Gym stood inside a gleaming glass building. Young people in activewear walked through the doors with headphones and protein bottles. I caught my reflection in the window, like someone who had walked into the wrong world. Leo Carver was already waiting at reception, tall, solid, calm-eyed. "Mr. Langdon?" "Yes." "Follow me." We entered the in-body room. He had me take off my jacket and measured my body fat, 34.2%. Weight, 267 pounds. My heart pounded. "What's your goal?" "I want to become someone my daughter isn't ashamed of." He paused, then nodded. "Good answer. But understand this. This isn't therapy. It's a campaign." "A campaign?" 3 months. Train 5 days a week. Rest 2. I'll send you to a nutritionist, Dr. Harper Lynn, for blood work and meal planning. From now on, you'll log every meal. Every beer is an act of self-betrayal." He crossed his arms, voice sharp as steel. "Mr. Langdon, I speak bluntly. I don't take clients who just want to feel better. I work only with those who want to change. If you follow the program, you'll reach at least 90% of your goal. But if you slack off, you'll pay the price." I frowned. "What price?" "Money and time. My fee is a flat rate. 12 weeks, 5 sessions per week, including nutrition coaching and medical monitoring. Total, $12,000. Paid up front. In Seattle, that's above average, but I guarantee I'll get your body where you want it. And if you quit, the real cost is staring into the mirror, seeing the same man, just $12,000 poorer." I went quiet, not from the cost, but from the fear I might fail. I looked at him, steady brown eyes, calm but burning. No pity, only belief. He said softly, almost whispering, "You don't need to believe in me. Just believe in the reason you walked in here. Anyone who truly needs to change always has a strong enough reason, and I think I know yours." I inhaled deeply, my heart thudding. "All right," I said quietly but firmly. "I'm ready." Leo nodded and handed me the training contract. "Good. Then we start today." The first workout was hell. Leo told me to get on the treadmill. 6 minutes in, I wanted to collapse. My lungs burned, my heart raced, and sweat soaked through my shirt. 2 more minutes, he said. I can't. You can, you just haven't chosen to. That line, short, but it sliced through me like a knife. I heard Madeline's words again. I was so embarrassed, Dad. Each step echoed her voice. The more I heard it, the faster I ran. When the clock hit 8 minutes, I fell onto the mat, chest heaving, eyes stinging. Leo tossed me a water bottle. Good, that was your first step. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. I drove home, the smell of sweat and rain mixing, my hands trembling on the wheel. At the door, I glanced in the hallway mirror, face red, hair wet, but my eyes were different. There was something new there, exhausted but alive. That evening, Dr. Harper Lynn called. Her voice was gentle but firm. Mr. Langdon, I reviewed your blood work, high triglycerides, mild fatty liver. We need a total reset. I'll send you a meal plan, 1,800 calories a day, no sugar, no alcohol, no fried food. Will that be okay? I'm not sure. Whether you're sure or not, your body doesn't care. It only responds to what you do. The first 3 days, I shook from caffeine withdrawal, my head pounding from cutting sugar. I lay on the couch, sweating cold, mouth bitter. More than once, I opened the fridge for a beer, but every time I heard, eat like an animal. I refused to die that way. On the 7th day, Leo came to my house at 6 a.m. We're running outside today. It's raining. Even better. Rain washes away excuses. We ran across the Fremont Bridge, mist floating over Lake Union. Each breath was a vow. I would never let anyone call me shameful again. When we got back, soaked through, I looked in the mirror. Still overweight, still soft, but different. Not in shape, but in spirit. For the first time in years, I saw a man fighting. I opened the drawer, took out our wedding photo, and wiped it clean. Martha, I whispered, watch me. I'll make our daughter understand what dignity means. The first week crawled by like the second hand on an old clock. Every morning at 6, I drove to Peak District Gym, the glass tower glowing in downtown Seattle, filled with young bodies moving like they were entering a ritual of strength. And me, just bending down to tie my shoes, made me dizzy. In the 4th session, Leo told me to lie on the bench press. Upper body today, he said. The bar looked light, but when I lifted it, it felt like holding up the Fremont Bridge. My shoulders trembled and sweat dripped down my chest. Inhale, press up, exhale. I managed 3 reps before my arms gave out, the bar clanging back onto the rack. My heart raced. I sat up, gasping for air. Stop, Leo said curtly. He didn't yell, didn't pity. You're fighting 10 years of neglect. No one wins in a day. Drink. I grabbed the bottle, my hand trembling, water spilling down my neck. A young woman nearby, toned and effortless, jogged on the treadmill while talking on her phone. I avoided her gaze, feeling exposed, naked among people who had already left me far behind. Leo leaned in, his voice low. Don't look at them. They've been here 5 years. You're on day 4. Don't compare. Everyone starts with pain. I only nodded. Inside, Madeline's voice echoed again. You eat like an animal. I was so embarrassed, Dad. On the 7th day, I stepped onto the digital scale. 259 pounds. I lost 8 pounds in the first week. Harper Lynn called right after I sent the results. You're moving in the right direction, but don't celebrate yet. It's mostly water loss. Increase protein, cut carbs by another 10%. I'm sending a revised meal plan. It's more specific. I checked the email, oatmeal and boiled eggs for breakfast, chicken breast and steamed vegetables for lunch, salmon and olive salad for dinner. No sugar, no alcohol. I felt full just reading it. Dr. Lynn, I sighed, I miss the smell of toast. You won't, once you feel lighter than your own body. In week 2, Leo took me to the squat rack. Today we build endurance. He placed the bar across my shoulders. Just 20 reps, no stopping, I began. 10, 15. Sweat stung my eyes, knees creaked. By the 20th, my vision blurred, the room spinning, the gym music turning into a distant hum. Then darkness. When I opened my eyes, I saw the white ceiling and the slow fan spinning. Leo sat beside me, pressing a cold towel to my forehead. His tone was calm but firm. "You're dehydrated." I called Harper. "She's on her way." I tried to speak, but my throat was sandpaper. "I failed." Leo crossed his arms, his gaze sharp as a blade. "No, you just started. This blackout is a reminder. No one escapes their own body." Harper arrived 15 minutes later in a white coat, hair neatly tied back. She checked my blood pressure, gave me an IV, and looked at me like a student caught cheating. "You didn't eat properly before the session. I told you. Never come on an empty stomach." I wanted faster results. Fast loss means short life. You need longevity. Do you understand? I nodded, eyes closed. Her voice softened. "I know why you're doing this, but don't let humiliation lead the way. Let health do it. Don't seek revenge by destroying yourself." Her words silenced me. When they left, Leo stayed behind, leaning on the chair. "You know what they say in the military, Langdon." "I've never been in the military." "We say pain is weakness leaving the body. Pain isn't the enemy. It's proof you're alive. But if you let it rule you, it'll kill you." I looked at him, my voice hoarse. "Have you ever fallen?" "Yes," he said. "Before this job. I was a Marine. Accident in Afghanistan. Lost comrades. Lost purpose. I had to learn how to stand again inch by inch. You're not alone, Petter. But you have to choose. Suffer to change or suffer staying the same." That day when I left the gym, Seattle's wind was cold and damp, light rain brushing my shoulders. I drove slowly past Lake Union, watching couples jog under umbrellas. In the rearview mirror, my face was pale, but my eyes had changed. It wasn't shame anymore. It was a quiet hunger. I will do this. That night, I sat at my desk, pulling out the contract Leo gave me on day one. The bold letters read, "No refunds." I smiled faintly. At least I'd invested in myself. Harper sent a weekly checkup schedule. "If you stay consistent, I'll allow 1 glass of red wine in month 2. I texted back, "No glass of wine is worth more than looking at my daughter without shame." She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. By week 3, I weighed 252 pounds. Leo glanced at the chart and nodded. "Now you believe?" "I still look fat." "Fat, but winning." He tossed me a towel. When the session ended, Leo called me over. He looked at me for a long moment, thoughtful. "Langdon," he said slowly, "your story made me think. Most people come to me for a better body. You came for dignity. And that's not just about muscle." I wiped sweat, panting. "What do you mean?" "It means, beyond your body, you need to relearn how to eat, walk, and speak. People won't respect you because you're thinner. They'll respect you because you've become different." I frowned. "Sounds complicated. How do I start?" Leo smiled, eyes glinting under the light. "Your job's simple. Take this seriously. We'll handle the rest. But," he paused, "it'll cost a bit more." I laughed. "Sounds like you're upselling me." He shrugged. "Call it self-investment. I want to introduce you to a friend. She's an etiquette and comportment coach. She teaches how to eat, speak, stand, and carry yourself. Since you're my client, she'll give you a 30% discount." I eyed him half doubtful. "Really?" "Really. If you dare to change your body, you can change how the world sees you." I hesitated, then nodded. "All right, arrange it." Leo smiled. "Good. Her name's Catherine Bloom." I shook his hand, feeling lighter. Maybe it was another service pitch, but something in Leo's tone made me believe I was putting my money in the right place, myself. I laughed for the first time in months, a rough, off-key laugh, but real. The day I met Catherine Bloom, Seattle was misty with light rain. Leo said only one thing. "Today you'll learn something more important than lifting, how to stand in a room without feeling small. Catherine's studio sat on the second floor of a restored townhouse on Capitol Hill. Oak door, polished floors, faint scent of Earl Grey tea. She was about 50, slim, with brown hair tied low, dressed in a navy suit. When I entered, she looked at me the way a sculptor studies raw stone. "Mr. Langdon," she said, warm yet firm, "I don't teach manners. I teach self-respect. The difference is this. A well-mannered person acts out of fear of judgment. A dignified person acts because they know they deserve to be seen with respect." I sat in a gold-trimmed chair. She tilted her head. "First, you're sitting wrong." "I just sat down." "Exactly. You sat. You didn't arrive. When you enter a room, people should know you're there without a word." She stepped closer, adjusted my posture, back straight, shoulders low, chin slightly lifted. "There. Now try again." I chuckled awkwardly, feeling ridiculous like a preschooler. She smiled knowingly. "Don't be embarrassed. I've taught CEOs and politicians. Everyone starts with sitting right." Her hand pointed to a dining table set with cutlery, wine glasses, and cloth napkins. "Now the eating part. Has anyone ever told you that you eat crudely?" I clenched my fist. "Yes. Someone important to me." She nodded, asked nothing more. "Good. Then we start with the utensils." Throughout the session, she taught me small details no one had ever told me in my life. How to place the napkin, how to hold the glass by the stem and not the rim, not to speak while still chewing, not to laugh loudly during the meal, how to rest the knife, and how to signal a server without calling out. "Dining is a piece of music," she said. "If you are noisy, people can no longer hear the melody." I was clumsy, dropped the fork twice, and spilled water on the table. Catherine stayed quiet, then said gently, "It's all right. What matters is that you realize you want to be different." When the lesson ended, I stood up, my back aching from keeping it straight for so long. She handed me a packet of handwritten notes, a list of things a man who has been humiliated needs to relearn. I looked down. Walk, speak, eat, shake hands, look straight, keep silent when needed. The last one, she said, is the hardest. The right kind of silence is stronger than speech. That night I went home and opened the list. In my small kitchen, I cooked chicken breast myself, set it on a white plate, and placed the napkin on the left. I practiced eating slowly, chewing with my mouth closed. At first it felt ridiculous, but after a few tries, I felt different. Meals were no longer a source of shame, but a ritual for someone who knows he is living consciously. The following week, Leo noticed the change. "You're walking differently," he said during training. "I'm just doing what Catherine told me." "No," he laughed. "You're learning to command space. When you can control the table, you can control the room, and then your life." I thought of Madeline. For some reason, the image of my daughter in a wedding dress under golden lights no longer hurt the way it had. Now, each workout, I imagined walking into the aisle not to ruin anything, but to stand firm, as proof of what Catherine said. Self-respect is the highest form of courtesy. In week 5, Catherine called me back for a progress check. She set a complete table. Red wine, steak, silver, flatware. "Today, eat as if you were at your daughter's wedding." The words made my heart pound. I sat down, my hands slightly shaking. "Remember what I taught you. Not only learn how to eat, but learn how to be intentionally silent." I cut the meat, chewed slowly, and kept my gaze steady. Catherine sat across from me, watching. "Much better," she said. "Do you know what I like most about you?" "I'm guessing I'm not dropping the utensils anymore." She laughed. "No, it's that you listen. Most men, when criticized, get defensive. You choose to listen. A listener is someone who can change." As I was about to leave, she handed me another card. "This is Lydia Crane, my friend, an executive image specialist. When you lose another 20 pounds, see her. She'll teach you how to choose suits, colors, and how to walk. By then you won't need to say anything. Just show up." That evening I jogged around Lake Union. Mist hovered over the water, city lights shimmering in reflection. My body had grown lighter, 243 pounds. With every step, I remembered the scene at the Belltown restaurant when I was mocked. That scene no longer clung like a stain. It burned like a small flame, lighting the path I was on. When I got home, I looked in the mirror. No longer the obese man with a hunched back and evasive eyes. Though there was still belly fat, my back was straight, my eyes alert. I remembered Catherine's words. The right kind of silence is stronger than speech. I smiled. For the first time, the man in the mirror felt worthy of his own name. The second month began with a rare sunny morning in Seattle. Light glittered on the lake, reflecting into my window frame. When I stepped on the scale, the number read 241 pounds. Leo nodded, satisfied. "You've dropped 26 pounds since day one," he said, his rough voice tinged with pride. "From now on, we train to reshape muscle, and it's time you meet the next person on this journey." "I'm guessing the friend that Catherine mentioned." He smiled. "Yes, Lydia Crane. She's an image consultant, has trained a few political figures in Washington state. You'll need her." I walked into Lydia's office that afternoon. The building was in Queen Anne. Inside, it looked like an Italian brand's showroom. Large mirrors, soft lighting, leather chairs, and the scent of sandalwood diffusing through the space. She stepped out, tall, shoulder-length black hair. Wearing a white shirt and wide-leg trousers, she offered her hand and a slight smile. "Mr. Langdon, I've heard about your journey. Catherine says you're someone who rarely quits." "I'm just trying not to die on the treadmill," I said, half joking, half honest. She chuckled. "Good. Because today we're not running. We're looking in the mirror." The room was long, with one wall a full-length mirror. Lydia asked me to remove my jacket and stand straight. White light fell, showing every line of skin and fiber of muscle. I saw a body still imperfect, belly still soft, shoulders still slack, but far from the obese man of 3 months ago. She came closer and handed me a cloth. "Now try seeing yourself the way others will." I did. A middle-aged man, salt and pepper hair, clear eyes, broader shoulders, a collar that no longer choked. "Good," she said. "Now let's talk attire." She drew a curtain to reveal rows of shirts, suits, dress trousers, leather shoes, shades from ash gray to navy. Rule number 1, choose clothes for the body you have now, not the man you used to be. And rule number 2, don't dress to look rich, dress to look worthy. She chose a dark blue suit, a white shirt, and a gray tie. When I tried them on, she adjusted the collar, smoothed the shoulder lines, then stepped back. "Look," she said. "What do you see?" I looked in the mirror. The suit hugged correctly, broadened my shoulders, and trimmed my stomach. In the reflection, my eyes held something new. Not arrogance, but quiet confidence. "I see. A man who seems to know what he wants. That's the goal. Appearance doesn't tell who you are, but it tells others how much you respect yourself." She gave me a shopping list. Black Oxford shoes, a leather belt, a round-faced watch, and one final note at the bottom. "Don't be stingy with what lets you step into the world with the right posture." When I left Lydia's office, Seattle's sunset spread over the wet street. I caught my reflection in the glass across the way, not a man ducking his head to avoid other people's eyes. I stood straight, inhaled, and felt the world shift a little. That night, I received a text from Leo. "Rest tomorrow. Go have a proper meal, but eat the way Catherine taught you." I chose a small lakeside restaurant. When I walked in, the server smiled politely and led me to a window table. I ordered a glass of red wine and grilled salmon, and I remembered Catherine's words, "Eat slowly. Each bite is a story." I did exactly that. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was eating. I felt like I was living. When I paid, I opened my phone and saw an unfamiliar message. "Madeline, Dad, I heard your health hasn't been good. I just wanted to know if you're okay." I stared at the words, my fingers trembling slightly. The message was short, no emoji, no apology. But it was the first signal since the day she left. I typed, "I'm okay. Thank you for asking. Then I stopped and didn't send it. I turned off the screen and left the message in drafts. Not yet. The next day, Leo met me at the gym and eyed the new clothes I wore. White shirt, gray chinos, polished shoes. Looks good, he said. Now you look like a man with a story worth hearing. I'm still just an old engineer. No, you're the man who just redesigned himself. That session I ran 10 miles without stopping, sweat soaking my shirt, heart pounding, yet inside rose a strange feeling, as if every step carried me farther from the man once called shameful. That night, I looked in the mirror again. Warm light traced a sun-browned face and a sharper jawline. I smiled. In the dark, I saw not only myself, but Martha's outline in the glass, dim yet gentle, and I seemed to hear her voice. "You're doing well, Peter," I whispered. "It's not over. On that day I will stand in that room, and this time no one will dare turn their back on you." 3 months passed like a breath. My weight was now 221 pounds, lighter, tighter, stronger. Each morning I faced the mirror and found something I had long forgotten, the light of confidence. Leo said I had completed 90% of the journey. "Now it's refinement," he said, "and choosing the armor for the final bout." I laughed. "You make it sound like a battlefield." He met my eyes steady. "For you, it is. Not to fight, but to reclaim your right to stand as an equal." The next day I met Lydia to choose a suit. She flung open the showroom. Light poured through the glass and washed over rows of perfectly hung jackets. "Today we find the one for a special day," she said. "I've never worn anything over $200, I admitted. She smiled. "Then let this be the first, and maybe the only, so it has to be right." She chose a charcoal pinstripe suit, classic and commanding, with a white shirt and a steel blue tie. When I put it on, Lydia stepped back and nodded slowly. "This is the Peter Langdon I wanted to see, the man who owes no one an explanation." I looked in the mirror, straight shoulders, set chin, bright eyes. The suit fit cleanly, sleeves kissing the wrists, Oxford shoes catching the light. I murmured, "Martha would love this." Lydia softened, "and she's probably proud right now." Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, Madeline sat in a bridal florist with Mrs. Stone. White roses, orchids, and gypsophila blanketed the table. "We need everything refined," Mrs. Stone said. "No mistakes. The Stone family will arrive in full." Madeline's smile was tight. "Yes, I know." "And about your father?" Her voice clipped. "Everyone believes he's deceased, yes?" Madeline nodded slightly. "Richard and I told everyone that. I didn't want complications." "Good. Don't let the truth leak. This wedding is your launch. Do not let a filthy past ruin it." The phrase filthy past made Madeline grip her teacup, but she only smiled. "I understand, Mother." In her chest, a hairline crack remained. The image of her father wiping sweat in the Fremont house flickered. Then Richard's phone rang, and the thought snapped. In Fremont, Leo and I were finishing the final session. He had me run the full 10 miles around Lake Union. Mist fell, shirt drenched, breath burning. When I stopped, Leo clapped my shoulder. "You've gone farther than anyone I've trained at your age." "I just ran away from myself," I said. "No," he grinned. "You ran back to who you are." That evening I went to the small restaurant where Catherine once taught me. She was already there, sipping tea, gold light bright in her sharp eyes. "You're different now, Peter," she said. "I don't just see a man who knows his utensils. I see a man who knows how to be silent at the right moment." "Silence is the hardest lesson," I said, "and you're about to need it. I hear your daughter's wedding is on June 22nd. "Yes." "Are you going?" I looked into my water glass and saw my face blur. "I don't know. I only know I won't hide any more." She smiled softly. "When you appear, don't bring anger. Bring truth. It shines brighter than any light they hang at a wedding." The next week, Leo, Lydia, and Catherine met me at the Harbor Room Cafe. They eyed me like 3 directors checking a role before opening night. Leo, conditioning, Ready? Lydia. Appearance. Perfect. Catherine. And your state of mind? I smiled. Never better. Lydia slid a small box across the table. Silver cufflinks, graduation gift. Don't wear them to show off. Wear them to remember every step you fought through these 3 months. As I left, Leo called. Peter! I turned. Know what I'm proudest of? What? That I don't have to motivate you anymore. You do it yourself. That night, I hung the new suit in the wardrobe. Light washed the gray fabric and bounced in the mirror, showing a different man's face. I opened my laptop. On the screen was the online wedding invitation Madeline had sent to friends and family. I was not on the list, of course. I clicked the photo album, Madeline in white, Richard beside her, Mrs. Stone radiant. I wasn't angry. I felt calm, and one thought crossed my mind. If she buried me once, then I would make her see the man she buried, walking upright, quiet, and more alive than ever. Outside, rain fell lightly, streetlights trembling on the water. I stood before the mirror, knotted my tie, and practiced a smile. Not the strained smile of a man enduring, but the smile of someone who finally understands the silence is about to end. June 22nd. Portland blazed with sun. The Rose Garden Pavilion was drenched in white and scent. I arrived half an hour early and parked in the hotel garage next door. When the events desk asked for an invitation, I handed over an old receipt. The words, initial deposit, Mr. Peter Langdon, $40,000. The receptionist checked the screen and smiled. You're on record as having made a prior payment for the event. Welcome. No one imagined the sponsor of the day was the man buried by a lie. I walked slowly down the glass corridor, the sound of rehearsal strings drifting out. Canon in D, the melody I'd heard at a friend's wedding 40 years ago. On the welcome table, a white sign read, Madeline Hayes and Richard Stone. Wedding ceremony, June 22nd, Rose Garden Pavilion. I looked at my daughter's name beside the Stone family, strangely calm. At 11:45, guests began filling the hall. I stood at the end of the aisle, between walls of roses and gypsophylla, light scattering in the glass as if the whole room were built of transparent falsehood. When the main piece began, I stepped in. No one stopped me. Everyone assumed I was some important guest of the benefactor. The first eyes to land on me were Richard's, his face locked, lips moving without a sound. Mrs. Stone turned, shock and frost in her gaze, whispering to her son, then darting a glance toward Madeline, who was walking hand in hand with the groom toward the center. She turned and saw me, and in that instant every layer of makeup, composure, and hostess poise shattered. She froze. Dad, she breathed, small but piercing, in the hall. Heads turned. I walked the white carpet, each footfall as loud as the heartbeat of the 3 paling people ahead. Richard moved toward me with a stiff smile. Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This event, there's no mistake, I said, evenly. I'm here for my daughter's wedding. The daughter you and your mother told the whole city had lost her father. Mrs. Stone clenched her clutch, eyes flaring. You have no right to disrupt this ceremony. I smiled faintly. Oh, I'm not disrupting anything. I've merely stepped out of the grave the 3 of you dug. Silence fell. Only the strings trembled. Madeline shook, tears spilling. Dad, I'm sorry. I looked at her, voice low and gentle. No, sweetheart. I didn't come to force an apology. I came to prove that honor doesn't die because someone lies. I turned to Richard. You once called me a kind old man, yet you taught my daughter to lie to be accepted. Congratulations, you taught her first lesson in fakery. His face hardened. Words failed. I faced Mrs. Stone. In your world, perhaps death is a way to keep up appearances. In mine, living decently is more courteous than any fake funeral. Camera flashes popped. A few guests lifted their phones. Mrs. Stone tugged at Madeline's arm, but she pulled away. Mother, enough, she said through tears. The hall stood frozen. I bowed my head slightly. voice hoarse but clear. I didn't come to reclaim a seat. I came to look at my daughter one last time in the image the three of you chose instead of the truth. I stepped back and smiled. Be happy. I'll leave this place as a man truly dead, but at least dead with honor. I turned and walked out into the light, past rows of white flowers, through whispers of shock and eyes lowered in shame. Outside, Portland's wind moved through, the scent of roses mingling with the cool of early summer. I slipped the silver cufflinks off and held them tight, not to throw them away, but to remember this. Sometimes, the most beautiful revenge is to make them watch the one they buried. Keep walking, straight, calm, and more radiant than ever. I left the rose garden pavilion with the sun leaning west, rose petals clinging to my shoulder and the scent of expensive perfume still hanging in the air. On the stone path to the parking garage, I could hear the wedding music trailing behind, no longer warm but cold as metal. I opened the Ford, sat still, and drew a long breath. In the rear-view mirror, the man looking back had quiet, bright eyes. Not a victor, not a loser, just someone who had stepped out of a funeral. The funeral of deceit. The next morning, Portland woke to fresh news. On a guest's social page, a 4-minute video of my appearance at the ceremony spread like a wildfire through dry woods. A father pronounced dead by his own daughter appears at her wedding. That headline showed up on every local site. In the clip, I wore a gray suit, walked straight down the hall, and the last line rang clear. You can bury someone with a lie, but you cannot make truth rot with it. Thousands of comments poured in. He's right. His eyes gave me chills. 3 months to turn humiliation into justice. By noon, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Unknown numbers, blocked numbers, even reporters. I powered it off, leaving only one message from Madeline. Dad, I'd like to meet. No emoji, no reason, just 4 words. I stared at it for a long time, then typed, Tomorrow, 3 o'clock, the Pine Roof Cafe. When I arrived, Portland's rain had returned, fine, cold, but gentle. Madeline sat in our old corner where we once talked about the wedding dress. No white gown, no lights, only a woman with reddened eyes, hands trembling as she stirred her tea. I sat across. Neither of us spoke for a few minutes. Outside, rain tapped the glass, the smell of Arabica familiar as ever. Dad, she began, hoarse. I didn't think it would go this far. What do you mean? The press? Social media? People are calling me cruel. His mother is being attacked. Richard's company lost contracts. I don't want this. I looked at her steady. And did I want to be treated as dead? She lowered her head, tears falling onto the table. I was wrong. I just wanted to be accepted. By whom? I asked quietly. She stayed silent. I leaned in, soft but clear. You chose to bury me to save face, but real face does not come from lies. You built a wedding on sand. Now the wind blows and it collapses. She wiped her tears. Do you hate me? I smiled faintly. I used to. Then I realized hatred only traps people. You taught me that, in the cruelest way. She looked at me, startled. I went on. Do you know why I went there? Not to ruin anything, but to end it. You said I was dead. I only came to bury my old weakness, and then leave as a free man. Madeline sobbed and gripped my hand. Dad, I don't deserve forgiveness. No one does, I said. People only need to know they need it. She studied me for a long time. Will you let me try to make it right? That's up to you. The public will forget, but your conscience will not. When you dare to tell the truth, they'll listen again. She nodded, tears running down her face. When we left, the rain was still fine. On the wet sidewalk, 2 reflections, one old, one young, walked side by side without needing more words. I stopped at the door and said softly, These 3 months I learned silence. Now it's your turn to learn the truth. Madeline squeezed my hand. I will. That afternoon she posted, No one has the right to bury another person with a lie, especially their father. I'm sorry, Dad. The line was short, paired with a photo of 2 hands, one old, one young, on the wooden table at the pine roof. No hashtags, no tears, no theatrics, only truth. Night fell. I sat by the window, watching rain beads slide down the glass. On the table, my phone glowed. 100,000 likes, thousands of supportive comments. I turned it off without reading. Outside, wind moved through the garden, tulips breathing in the chill. I sipped tea and whispered, "Martha." She finally said it. And in that moment, my heart felt as calm as after a storm. 3 days after Madeline's apology, Portland media still hadn't quieted. The story of the father pronounced dead, who returned at his daughter's wedding, led every major paper. Some ran cheap headlines, but most praised. The Oregonian ran an editorial. No layer of lipstick can cover the truth. Reporters knocked at my Fremont door and left cards, but I didn't answer. I'd had enough light. I wanted quiet. The world did not grant it. Thursday morning, Leo called. "Peter, have you seen the news?" "What news?" "Mrs. Stone. Her foundation is being audited." I opened the laptop. The Seattle Tribune banner read, "Eleanor Stone's Foundation Understate Audit." They suspected she used nonprofit funds to pay for flowers, music, and decor for a private wedding. I looked at the screen and exhaled. No need for revenge. Truth was doing its work. That afternoon, Lydia texted, "You haven't heard about Richard?" "I'm afraid to ask." "He's suspended? The parent company in California wants no dead father scandal near the brand. He's moving back to his mother's." I smiled. They buried me together to step into that world. Now that very world is burying them. That night, Madeline called, voice shaking. "Dad, the press is swarming her house. Richard is falling apart. I don't know what to do." I said gently, "No one escapes consequences, but this isn't retribution. It's a lesson. Be quiet and live right. The rest will balance itself." She was silent for a long time, then asked, "Do you hate me?" I looked out at Portland's rain, thin as smoke. "No, I don't anymore. In fact, that humiliation saved me." 3 days later, I got an interview request from a local TV station. They wanted an inspiring story about self-respect. I declined. Lights don't make a person shine. Actions do. On Saturday, I met Catherine and Lydia at the Harbor Room. Catherine smiled. "You've become a symbol. People share your clip as a lesson." I laughed. "A symbol of what?" "I'm just someone who was humiliated and chose to stand up." Lydia asked, "What will you do next?" "I'll go back to drawing. A few small projects. Not for money, but because I miss making beauty with my hands." In the afternoon, a package arrived with no sender. Inside was the Portland Gazette. Front page a photo of Madeline bowing her head, hand on a microphone. Headline, "Madeline Hayes, the woman who chose truth." In her speech, she said, "I lost a father to a lie and found him again in the truth. Honor doesn't come from an apology, but from how we live afterward." I set the paper down, relieved. Martha once said, "A tree only blooms when its roots can bear the cold." Perhaps my daughter had just survived her winter. That evening, Leo dropped by. "See? People are talking about you as a model." He showed me the Seattle Life cover. "The Return of Peter Langdon, A Father's Quiet Revolution." I looked at my photo in the gray suit, my eyes calm. "Sounds grand," I said. "No," Leo smiled. "People need stories like that, to remember that honor still exists in this country." I let out a rough laugh. Honor is simply refusing to bow to lies. When he left, I stepped onto the porch. That night, Portland drizzled, lights shimmering on the wet street. I looked at the yellow tulips I had replanted after winter. The rain made their petals tremble but not fall. I whispered, "Martha, I've done it." And then, within the sound of rain, I thought about the road behind me. 3 months of turning humiliation into strength. I realized that sometimes it's the fall that makes us resilient. Shame doesn't come to destroy us. It comes to remind us to look inward. If my daughter hadn't said, "Let's pretend you're dead," I might still be sitting in front of the TV with a beer can and a 267-pound body. I no longer felt anger or hate, only gratitude that adversity had taught me to live truthfully. It made me understand that caring for the body isn't vanity but responsibility. When we're healthy, clear-minded, and dignified, we don't have to demand respect. People give it naturally. 3 months of training, sweat, and silence changed more than my body. It restored my honor. And if someone asked for the greatest lesson, I'd say, sometimes the words that hurt most are the beginning of rebirth. Don't fear humiliation. Use it as fuel to become better. I closed the door, turned off the light, and looked at the tulip petals, still glowing yellow in the rain. Truth, like those flowers, can be beaten down but will always rise again. Resilient, quiet, and beautiful, beyond burial. Some people use power to diminish you. Some people use silence to erase you. But only you can decide how you will rise. I was once buried alive in my own story, declared dead because I wasn't refined enough to sit at a table. But instead of revenge, I chose change, and I learned that every humiliation can become energy if you turn it into action. If you've listened this far, don't just leave in silence. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video to spread the message that honor isn't in money or praise. It's in how we walk after we've fallen. Leave a comment and tell me what pain you had to rise from, because maybe the next story I tell will be yours. I'm Peter Langdon, and this is how a man once declared dead learned to live again. See you in the next story.